Hello, and thanks for joining us today for our presentation on CalFlora. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to welcome any of you who are new to the California Native Plant Society and tell us a bit about our organization and our favorite topic, native plants. California's native plants are what make California look like California, from the Joshua tree of the Mojave Desert to the redwood forest of the North Coast. We are lucky to live in one of the most botanically rich places on Earth, with more types of native plants than any other state in the US. At the California Native Plant Society, we think that's something worth celebrating and protecting. CNPS is a nonprofit organization made up of more than 10,000 members, 35 local chapters, and a team of staff. Together, we're working to conserve wildlands, protect endangered species, collect scientific data, and restore nature to our home and public landscapes, one garden at a time. We're the voice for plants. And plants need us now more than ever as we face the combined challenges of climate change, extinction crisis, and growing development pressure. But we need them too. In fact, none of us, not the insects, the birds, nor humans, can exist without them. So when we save plants, we save everything else. If you're inspired by what you see and hear today, please consider getting involved. Become a member by visiting cnps.org/join, or sign up to receive our emails and learn more about what we're doing at cnps.org/get-connected. I am going to introduce all the people who are in front of and behind the scenes today. And then I will make a couple of chapter announcements, and then I'll introduce our speaker. So our Zoom host today is the fabulous Ed Harrison. Hi, Ed. And then taking your questions is our former chapter president, Katie Barrows, and please put your questions in the Q&A. It's a technical presentation, so we will stop several times to give people a chance to ask questions on the specific topic. We do have a couple of chapter announcements. We will have a chapter general meeting at the next Zoom in March, and we'll have one in June to elect officers. We will, we hope to be giving very limited chapter field trips by June for people who meet the criteria, which have not yet been developed. And if people want to take a leadership position in the chapter for people who are in our service area, please consider emailing us at rsbcnps@gmail.com, or you can find that on our chapter website. So the board is fun, and we do take special trips that you might not get otherwise. So now I'd like to introduce our speaker, Cynthia Powell. Cynthia has an MS in GIS, and that's Geographic Information Science, for those of you who don't know the acronym. And she has worked for CalFlora since 2013, and she's been the executive director of CalFlora since 2016. She introduced a few innovations to CalFlora, including data sharing to iNaturalist, including their photo contest, which one of our chapter members, Aaron Eccles, has won in the past, and with his beautiful Matilla poppy picture. And she introduced the planting guide. So welcome, Cynthia, and tell us about CalFlora.
Thanks, Orchid. It's nice to be here. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Host disabled screen sharing. host. Could you enable it? Oh, there we go. All panelists. All panelists.
I just made you a co-host, so try it again.
Okay, thank you. All right, how's that?
Yep, we're there. Thank
Okay,
you.
great. And as you have questions, as Orchid mentioned, you can type them into the Q&A. And if they're urgent, then I can address them midway through. If they are not urgent, there's a section for questions at the end. So this is a special presentation mostly focused on your region as a chapter, but I know that there's some not chapter members and some chapter members who aren't from your chapter also participating, which is great. So I'm going to try and also incorporate not just specific to your chapter plants. This is a Dudleya by Ron Vanderhoff, and you can obscure the exact location if you'd like to, if you're worried about poaching or somebody hurting the species and you just don't want to release exactly where it was. Broader overview, CalFlora is a 501c3 nonprofit plant database, and we provide information on wild California plants for conservation, education, and appreciation. Here's our team. As Orchid mentioned, I have my MS in GIS. I'm a database person. I'm learning a lot about botany, but I'm not a botanist myself. And we have so many dedicated volunteers who are also part of CalFlora, making it run the way that it does and helping. If you want to be one of those volunteers, we have even COVID-safe volunteer opportunities, such as choosing reference photos for our Taxon report pages is a popular one these days. So let me know if you'd like to be a volunteer. The database itself contains over 10,000 native and introduced species. Those are all species in the state of California, all plant species. We have over 2 million plant location observations. It used to be just points, like we have an observation of this specific Dudleya at this specific location. And now we also have the capability as of about 2010 to have lines and polygons. So if there's a large area, sometimes it's of invasive plants, which are also important to document, even though we don't like them. You can say in this several acres, we have, or even redwoods, we have all of these redwoods, and it doesn't have to be an exact point. It's a quick way to add a lot of information into the database. And lines maybe along a trail or along a river. You find a Calochordus, it goes all along this trail. You can put that in or find it in CalFlora if you don't add it yourself. As you know, plant names change for better or for worse. And if you're looking for an old name or if you're looking for a new name, you can find it using CalFlora. We crosswalk is the verb. All old names, old names, old names, old, and to the new names. So if you're looking for a mimulus, you can still find it. Whatever name it is that you're looking for, you bring them all to the same place. We have over 30,000 plant photos, and I know some are from your chapter members, which is really great. And I'm hoping to encourage you to add even more of your photos into CalFlora so that they can be not just, even if they're not the greatest photos, having the observations attached to a location, which is what a photo requires in CalFlora, is really valuable for the database as a whole, because we pull in information from that location, or even if you don't have a photo attached to the observation, that you saw a specific plant at a specific location, you being the knowledgeable chapter members that you are, helps CalFlora immensely. So that's something I'm encouraging. I'm on that little push right now. And 80,000 unique e-visitors each month. That's gone up since about a year ago when the shelter in place started, and 2,600 a day approximately, and about 4,000 active data contributors. I know a lot of you in your chapter are active data contributors, which is great. And then those of you who aren't, there's a lot of opportunities that I'll talk about today for becoming an active data contributor, for instance, your photos, and then also chapter surveys, which Arlie, who is not on the call this morning, and Aaron Eccles are leading that charge, and I'll talk more about that too. The CalFlora database contains all 10,000 native and introduced species which is all wild plant species in the state. That is some so-called native, CalFlora native observations, but that also includes, we have a lot of different data feeds from different sources. For instance, CCH, the specimens, California Consortium of Herbarium. We have a data feed from CCH. We have a data feed from iNaturalist. We have a data feed from EDD Maps out of Georgia. So you won't just find CalFlora, pure CalFlora native observations. You'll find all observations, unless you don't want to see them, in which case you can also block them out from other data feeds. It's a little confusing because we start with Cal at the beginning of our name, CalFlora, and a lot of people think we're associated with UC because of that Cal. So we're not part of the UC. We're not part of Cal Photos, although we do serve. They generously share their photos with us to serve from CalFlora to serve as reference photos. But we're not part of UC. We're not part of California Invasive Plant Council, which is its own nonprofit. And you guys know this because you are part of CNPS. But CalFlora is separate from a separate nonprofit from CNPS. We've been a nonprofit since the year 2000. And here's the outline for today. So first, CalFlora Taxon report pages. Next, map layers. Next, the planting guide, iNaturalist, your questions, and then the really fun after party, entering chapter surveys into CalFlora. And several chapters have taken this and run with it. San Luis Obispo, Redbud most recently, and it's extremely valuable. So that's going to be the after party, and it really is fun. So it is party. These Taxon report pages are a great way for you to get to know your regional plants. You can search by a number of different things and land on these pages. So you see the distribution map with the blue dots showing where the species occurs in the state. We have the scientific name, the author, common name or common names. And if you don't like the common names, let us know. We can change them around, or if you want to add more, those are, that's easy to do. In fact, I just changed some common names this morning. You can scroll through photos. We used to have 4 static photos on these pages, but in the last probably couple years, we decided that we needed more than 4 photos and to make it dynamic. And the bloom period, showing when the blooming starts approximately, and of course in different places in the state that's going to change, and when it ends. So in this case on our bloom wheel, February is when the California huckleberry tends to start blooming, and then June is when it tends to stop blooming. The family, the genus. If it's not native, boo hiss, I know. We have a link to the California Invasive Plant Council page about that species that'll give you more information about it. And also we have those red squares on the map are quads. So we have a lot of invasive plant data at the quad level. We also have rare plant data at the quad level to obscure the location. But invasive plant data at the quad level we get from California Invasive Plant Council. They have something called the Cal Weed Mapper. Here I mentioned how we crosswalk the old names and the new names. So for this Pacific aster, there are 3 alternate names, and whichever one you're looking for will bring you here to this Taxon report page. Nursery availability for the native plants that you might be able to purchase in a nursery. We have a list of which nurseries sell them. And you can look for the ones closest to you. Some of the nurseries might not be open due to the COVID, so then you need to dig a little deeper and figure that out. But if they offer them, we have that list. For instance, here's a list of nursery and seed sources for this species, including wholesale seeds and retail, mail order, etc. I wanted to point out that some of your chapter members have some photos in CalFlora that are already being used as reference photos, which is great. As I mentioned before, you don't need to have a beautiful photo to add an observation to CalFlora. If it does happen to be a beautiful photo, we have our reference photo editor team, volunteers, you can join this team, who are switching these photos in and out. So for this scarlet larkspur, you see the distribution map, where it occurs in the state. And this is just like a few pieces of the taxon report pulled out so that to emphasize Colin Barrow's gorgeous photo and Mike Libby's gorgeous photo. And then of course you can scroll up and down in the photos when you're live to see them. Here we have this dye bush and another Colin Barrows photo and the distribution in the state. Some of these observations that are up a little bit north and east in the state, if you're wondering about them, are those accurate? What's going on? You can click on the map and it'll take you to the county and you can dig a little deeper. Where did they come from? Are they perhaps CCH records that aren't very well georeferenced? Like for sure the species is right because it's a specimen, almost for sure the species is correct, but sometimes those locations can be off. But maybe those are accurate. Maybe in 1860, dye bush was found there. Oops. And here, of course, another chapter member, Aaron Eccles, amazing photographer. He has probably thousands of photos in CalFlora, and here's just one that's being used as a reference photo for this woolly star. I mentioned the red quad level data is for invasive plant data. If there's a yellow quad, like you see here, that is indicating a rare plant. And so not all of those observations are going to be able to drill down and see exactly the exact lat long. Some you'll just see a quad. I love that photo. Okay. So that's the Taxon report pages, what most people go to CalFlora to find. And now let's talk about map layers. As you're searching through I found this plant, I want to know what it is. I was on a hike, my friend also didn't know, or we know the genus, we don't know the species. How can we figure it out? There's a lot of different ways. And one new tool that helps is a map layer. So we have above every map is a little, well, is the word layers, and a little drop-down menu. And you can look, for instance, at serpentine, and you can see maybe you were on serpentine soil, maybe you saw a serpentine plant, and the blue, red, and purple on this map for the serpentine indicate different eras in geologic time of the serpentine. And you can zoom in and drill down and see where exactly what happened for the serpentine. Watersheds, these are the big watersheds. We also have sub-watersheds and I think even sub-sub-watersheds. So if you're looking at a specific or researching a specific watershed, or you live in a watershed and you want to know more about what invasive plants might be upstream in your watershed, you can search specifically for a watershed and not have to draw those wonky polygons around yourself. Precipitation, every observation that comes into CalFlora is associated with a point. And each point is also associated with climate and soil data. Calcium carbonate, pH, serpentine, temperature, high, low. We're going to look at this in the CalFlora planting guide also. And the precipitation layer exists in part to help inform the algorithms that generate what grows well at a certain location. But they also exist to help you when you're trying to figure out, what did I see and where, and what's the precipitation like there. I also just think this is so beautiful, this one. Protected layers is my most favorite layer, protected areas, excuse me. Comes from the California Protected Areas database. We don't make up these layers, we get them from other places, and all the source information is listed on the CalFlora website if you're curious about where did these watersheds come from, where did CPAD, we call it, California Protected Areas database, came from Green Info Network. All these little pastel polygons are a protected area, so you can zoom in and see, what state park did you go to, what national forest did you go to, and the national forests have those checkerboards, so it's a little hard to draw a polygon or draw your own map of that, but it's here. And then you can see what plants grow where you were in that specific protected area. Or if you're going to go hiking, you can create an illustrated plant list for that specific protected area. And you can also search for what's blooming when you go. That's something that I'd like to do, so I'm just going to write that down. Search for what's blooming in February in a protected area near you and just see. CNPS chapters, of course. So when we're looking at surveys at the end of the presentation, I'm going to look just at your chapter, and I have a slide showing what surveys already exist, what their names are, and where they are within your chapter. And that way you know where are the blank spots, where do we need more information. And also, just because there is already a survey in a specific location, is it thorough? Is it complete? Is there more information that could be added to it? But you can also use chapter layers to, look up what grows in your chapter, what rare plants grow in your chapter. Lots of different things. Okay, now for the planting guide. From the CalFlora homepage at calflora.org, you click on the planting guide, which is one of the hyperlinks on the left. And I'm going to do that live so that you can see my screen as I use the planting guide. So I'm going to slide this over. Oh, I guess I'm sharing. Do you still see my PowerPoint, or do you see me live on CalFlora right now? Your screen sharing is paused. I think I need to
I'm
change.
just seeing a black square where you've opened up the new window.
Okay, let's see. Stop share, resume share, screen. Let's do screen 1. Bring it over here. Share screen 1.
Okay, now we're seeing your desktop and
Now do you see calflora.org on Chrome?
that's correct.
Okay, great. Here's the homepage, calflora.org, and the planting guide is this link on the left. So to start, click on the map to choose a location. Where do we want to plant? We want to plant native plants, of course. Which ones will thrive at the location that I'm interested in? Here are map layers, which we just talked about. Unfold that. We could look at county lines, which are on, streams. Underneath region, we can look at protected areas, CNPS Chapter, Jepson region, Jepson e-Flora geographic subdivision, zip codes. We took zip codes out for a while because it didn't seem that relevant, but then people complained, we added them back. EPA Ecoregion 4, EPA Ecoregion 3, Watershed. We have grids, and we also have climate here, annual precipitation, wet season, and soil information. Let's first go to your chapter, fold up layers. And as you click on the map, it says which chapter you're in down here. So here's Bristlecone, here's Mojave, Kern, Alta Peak. Here we go, Riverside, San Bernardino. And down here we have San Diego. So as I click on here, where are you guys wanting to plant? Where's the location that you might want, either a restoration site or where you're living in your garden, something like that? Where should I go? And I do want somebody local who's part of your chapter.
Do you want to use the RCD office at 4500? Oh, help me out. I just blanked.
4500.
Sorry.
Could also put, oh, Arlie raised her hand. Yes, Arlie. Can Arlie talk?
Glenwood. There you go.
Glenwood. And
Now,
which city?
Riverside.
Riverside. Does that look right?
That looks right.
Okay, so if this is the area, or this exact point actually, where you're going to plant, let's see, is it low water? Two participants raised their hands.
Yes.
It is low water. What about, so then it's not riparian. Is it shady?
It could be shady.
We can do both. We can run it both ways. And then if you want even more criteria, drop this down. Let's actually, that was a little overwhelming. Let's just see what we get with low water and shade first, and then we can look into more criteria. If you want to tighten your constraints, you can limit your list that way. And if your list is too short, you can loosen the constraints and then you'll get even more in your results. And one thing people don't always realize about CalFlora applications is that if the map is getting in your way, you can fold it up and then it's gone. All right, so this application suspects that 20 plants is not sufficient and it says we could loosen our constraints. Let's just fold up the map and not group by life form and see what we've got. So all results are going to have common scientific name, common name, annual herb, photos, bloom wheel, and it's a clickable scientific name. So that'll take you to the Taxon report page, for instance. Oh yeah, there's several options. Here's what we were talking about, the bread and butter of CalFlora that most people come for with the gorgeous photos. Oh, Steve Mattson, wow. CNPLX stands for, this is a mouthful, California Native Plant Link Exchange. So if you wanted to buy this annual burr weed to plant at this location, here's where you could buy it. And this is from before the COVID, so always check and see. And location suitability. Why is this species showing up on our list? So for this location, we know that the burr weed grows where these blue dots are and purple dots. And the elevation for the location that we chose on Glenwood, I think it was, is 244 meters. And this plant tolerance will handle 10 to 2,430 meters. Same with precipitation. The location value right here in Riverside, 11 inches of precip a year. The tolerance for this plant is 8 to 75 inches per year. So for every single species in the database, we have tolerances that are enhanced by observations that we have in the database. For instance, I'm hoping to get more of those observations from you chapter members. And then we're able to generate pages like this that show the location values for any location in the state and what that plant will tolerate. Back to our planting guide results over here. Oh, such nice photos. Butterfly indicates pollinator species. And if this results, like say 20, you were really going for a big, you needed more. So let's loosen our constraints and see what we get. Let's not use soil factors to choose plants. Let's not omit plants at the edge of their tolerances. So let's include all plants, whether they're at the edge of their tolerance or not. Let's not say they have to be easy to establish for them to show up in my results. And let's not say that they have to be in the same ecoregion. They also don't need to be in the same county or within 10 miles. Those would be these checkboxes we would click if we wanted fewer results, or if we were maybe a new gardener and easy to establish was important for us, I would check that one again. You can also check plants that grow well with a specific species that you already have growing at that area. So let's search again. 48 this time, so more than double. And if you wanted to share this with somebody in your chapter or that you work with or your family friend, you take this exact hyperlink and email it to them or share it with them, and they'll see what you're seeing. They'll see that you have low water and shade checked. None of the other criteria are checked. They'll see this exact location on the map and this exact 48. If between today and tomorrow, you send them this link today and tomorrow somebody else adds a wild plant species that grows at this location that meets the criteria, they might see 49 species tomorrow. So that's the planting guide. And I think it's really useful. When we first released it about 1.5 years ago, there were some people living in the desert who didn't get, they got maybe 1 or 2 results. And so we had to change the algorithm to be able to work for people who lived in places that were very, very dry. But that was a tweak that we did. And since then, we haven't gotten any complaints. So, and you can also, if you want, in addition to sharing the URL, under tools, you can send as an email, which will take this URL and send it as an email. You can download a spreadsheet, which takes you to Excel, and then you get this whole list in a spreadsheet. You can also go to what grows here at this place. So here we are, and the ecoregion is turned on, EPA ecoregion 4. And so if you want to know what grows within this ecoregion, which is going to be a lot, still searching, you could get there from the planting guide. You could also go there in several other ways, but not to overwhelm. Let's see. So the next topic that I had to discuss was it? Let me just look at my PowerPoint and figure out where we were on the agenda here. Oh, it was iNaturalist. A lot of people use iNaturalist kind of casually in the field to add observations to the iNaturalist database. We are pulling in a filtered subset of iNaturalist records in CalFlora. So let's look at that and how that works. I guess I should say, are there any, there's time for questions at the end, but if there's any burning questions about the planting guide that need to be answered while we're looking at these results, let me know. Maybe raise your hand or something, or Q&A is also working.
I have a burning question.
Yes.
And Arlie put it in the chat as well, but those plants looked like sun plants to me. Did we, even though it says shade is checked, for example, the Argemone, the prickly poppy, is not, in my experience at all, a shade plant.
Interesting. All right, let's look at that species. Let's look at location suitability. And where is it pulling the shady information from for this species? So elevation, precipitation, wet season, temperature range. Huh, that's a great question, Orchid. I don't know where the shade comes from, like whether something would do well. Let's see if it's still there if we uncheck shade. I don't remember where we are. Search again. Oh my gracious, that changed a lot. 100. We went from 48 to 152 by unchecking that. So I think this is just a guess, and I'll need to check in with John and get back to you for a more exact answer. But I think that the species that show up when we had shade checked are really limited, and that when you uncheck it, it's like that one probably could do well in shade. It doesn't mean that it thrives in the shade. It means that it could maybe tolerate it. But the ones that for sure won't thrive in the shade are now showing up. So I wouldn't think that that means that it grows well in shade. It's just that it could maybe do okay in shade. But let me just write that down. Let's scroll through here again.
So there, so Arlie is disputing several, and I agree with her. So is there some mechanism by which we could dispute that?
Yes, please. So here's how you do it. You take the hyperlink, you send an email to me or to John, or spprt@calflora.org. You get all of us. And I'm cpowell@calflora.org. And then you say, look, this species should not be on the list for X, Y, and Z reasons. Can you tell me why it is on the list? And does Arlie want me to look at one specifically?
She had, I think, the Eriastrum, and there were more than one.
Okay.
And so.
And was it a shade thing, or was there another constraint that she was worried about?
It was the shade.
It was the shade. Okay, so the shade is the one that you guys are really.
We're having some questions about.
Thorny issue, the shade.
Yes, we're having some authority issues. And especially because she would be the authority. So
yeah, Arlie is always the authority in my opinion. So that's it. I will write that down. And also, whenever you're using the planting guide and you have a question about why something is showing up, I would say check the tolerances and see if you can figure it out from location suitability. And if that doesn't help, maybe if you do say omit plants at edges of their tolerances, that'll probably get rid of a lot of these. Yeah, down to 89 here. So it could be that something was just at the edge of its tolerance and then it got thrown out in this one. Yeah, and if you can't figure it out or if you want more information, just take the hyperlink and send it to us. And that's really helpful. It not only helps you, but it helps other people. Because if there's something on this list that's showing up that shouldn't be, then if we adjust the algorithm appropriately, then it won't show up for other people also.
Good to know.
Okay. Any other burning questions, Arlie or anybody else, about the planting guide and those results? And here again, under tools is how you download the spreadsheet, send as an email. You can check the location profile here just to see at this place here in Riverside, what exactly is going on with the elevation, precip, temperature range, December low, July high, accumulated temperature, growing season, hardness zone, soil, etc. All right, so iNaturalist was the next subject. And as I mentioned, we have this filter because we don't want all iNaturalist records in CalFlora. There are, say for instance, there's a lot of cultivated observations in iNaturalist, and that's allowed in iNaturalist, but CalFlora is a wild plant database. So observations that come into iNaturalist as cultivated, we throw out. Now, we don't always know that they're cultivated if the user doesn't say this is planted in a garden. So we have other kinds of filters to try and grab those and throw them out. For instance, if there's a species found way outside its range, outside its tolerances, like I was just showing you, every plant has these, what it can tolerate for elevation, soil, precipitation, etc., temperatures, then we throw it out. If the user's Creative Commons license doesn't allow us to pull it in, even if it matches our criteria, we throw it out. If it's not research grade, we don't want it, even though research grade isn't as, I don't know, we wish that research grade were a little bit stronger, but it's not as strong as we would like it to be. But anyways, anything that's not research grade, we don't have. And iNaturalist observations, so here's the CalFlora homepage, calflora.org. And there's a lot of different ways to search the millions of observations in CalFlora. What grows here, we looked at briefly a minute ago for an ecoregion. Let's go to observation search, and that is searching all observations within a certain, for instance, CNPS chapter. So let's go down again to you guys, click on that one. Shows up here which CNPS chapter we're in. And let's look for rare plants in our selected area, not in the map area, not anywhere in the state, but within the CNPS chapter, Riverside, San Bernardino. And start date, let's do any beginning start date, any observer, Aaron Eccles, I think will probably be showing up here. Under other sources, you can decide, you can opt in to CCH and iNaturalist, or you can opt out of one or both of them. So let's opt in for now and see what we get. And if it's too many observations, which it looks like it's going to be dependent because of how long the search is taking, we can, oh yeah, over showing the first 2,000 records. So there are more than 2,000 and displayed here just the first 2,000. Oh, Colin, wow. Colin Barrows, Ron Vanderhoff. I get lost looking in the photos. You can fold up the map, as I mentioned, with this blue arrow here and just scroll through the results. A lot of these are going to have multiple photos associated with the observation. So let's fold the map back down again. If we wanted to turn iNaturalist off and CCH off, we would probably get fewer results, although it might still be 2,000 because we're looking from the beginning of time here. And if you wanted to sort by species name, click on plant. Oh, it's a lot. I should have narrowed it down first. So it went pretty quickly. So now they're alphabetized by scientific name. You could alphabetize by observer, by source, by date, by county, by location description. And not all observations will have all of these attributes associated with them. The 4 mandatory attributes for CalFlora observations are date, observer, location, and then species name. But I say that you can also, if you don't know which species you were looking at, you can add at the genus level. You can also say unknown and add to plant ID help group. And plant ID help group has about 200, actually I think we might be up to 300 experts in it who are able to help you. You know, they kind of work together and on a regional basis. There is experts for different regions involved, and they can, if you have good photos and sufficient photos associated with your observation, they can help you ID it. So those are the 4 mandatory fields. And if you wanted to see of these rare plants 2000 that we got when we had iNat and CCH turned on, which ones are coming from iNat and which ones are coming from CCH. The CCH ones always start with CCH in the ID. And then as you drill down, so for instance, which one is this? There it is. I clicked on the purple pencil. It's from 2009, Justin Wood. Location. So someone in CCH took this location description perhaps and associated it with a point, although it's from 2009, so it could be just associated with a point. And if you want more information about it, this record, clicking on record detail takes you to the CCH website and you can learn more about it. Rachel Davis, if you want to figure out more about her observation here, of this lovely verbena. This is from 2019. Here's her location description. And then if you click on record detail, that takes you to the CalFlora page. Oh, you can like her photo. Let's do that. I love it. And I like this one, although it has that gray at the bottom, and more information about it here. You can look at her profile and see, is she an expert? Is she a botanist? Does she know? Can she really identify this rare plant with certainty? And if you think that this is misidentified, which I actually don't have any reason to believe in this case, you can write a comment here, and then Rachel receives an email saying, Cynthia questioned your ID on the species. And if she doesn't respond to my email and either correct her ID or say, you know what, I know what I'm talking about and I'm right, then it becomes a so-called questionable record in the CalFlora database. And you can opt to see questionable records, or you can opt not to see them when you're searching, when you're sifting through these millions of observations in CalFlora. And okay, so that's comments, and that's a little bit more about iNaturalist. If you have iNaturalist observations that you'd like to pull into CalFlora, or if you want to see which of your observations are already pulled into CalFlora, you can search by your handle here. Let's start from the home page, go to observation search. Observer is your iNat handle, and search for anywhere in the state and just see what it is that you have in there. And if you want to pull iNat records in for a specific species that might not already be in CalFlora, or for a specific location like your chapter, you can do that by going to CalFlora and add observations. And there's a lot of different ways to add observations. One of them is to add them from iNaturalist, survey checklist entry, which we're going to talk about at the end pretty soon coming up here. Plant observation entry is a way to just add, if you're a computer person, you're not a phone app kind of a person, you don't want to, have a smartphone, you don't want to go out in the field and mess with that, you can take your pictures, take your observations, and then add them later through plant observation entry. Multiple photo upload, which is a way to add multiple photos to one observation, which is if you have something for plant ID help group, you need help IDing, having multiple photos is very helpful for that. And then we have Observer Pro, which is our phone application to pull in observations when you're in the field. You take a picture, you add the scientific name in the field or not, leave it as unknown, and then you upload it to CalFlora when you get back to connectivity. You don't need Wi-Fi or connectivity in the field to use Observer Pro. It's actually, I use it on airplane mode because I like to save battery if I'm out for a long day or even an overnight trip or something. And Observer Pro has a lot of capability in terms of if you're a rare plant observer and you want your observations to use the Cnddb data collection forum. Cnddb stands for California Natural Diversity Database, which is a state program for rare plants. They have a lot of questions that they ask rare plant observers to answer as you are adding your rare plants to CalFlora, or if you want them to go to Cnddb, they can. And all of those are, I should just show you. So let's look at the Cnddb forum. If you go to plant observation entry, new record, we have, I have to sign in. This is my Yahoo account. I have to sign in with my CalFlora account to see it, because you have access to different forums depending on which group you're in. Okay, so here I am signed. You do need to be registered because every observation has to be associated with a name and an observer, new record. Okay, so here's a group that I'm in called Observer Protesters, and anybody who wants to observe rare plants using the Cnddb form can. You just have to join a group for rare plants. And here's the Cnddb form. So it includes scientific name, common name. The observer is automatically pulled in. The date is pulled in. You can always change these. Site, radius, location description, coarse habitat with a lot of drop downs, detailed habitat description, aspect, slope, population viability, primary threat qualifier, secondary threat. I don't know how many of you are rare plant observers, but this is just an example of a data collection form that's customizable. So there's post-fire. For those of you going out, like Arlie, I think, and Ron Vanderhoff and Aaron are going out to post-fire sites and observing how the landscape has changed since a fire. And they have specific fields that they want that need to be collected when you're collecting post-fire data. So those are a separate data collection form. We have weed manager users collecting treatment information using a special data collection form anyways. So let's talk about your questions, and then might I entice you to join the after party by showing you the surveys that already exist in your chapter area, and then you can see about the gaps and how you could add knowledge to this. So, but right before we get to your questions, let's just look at survey search. Here we go, layers, region, CNPS chapter, back it out. I have my preferences set to where I live. You can set your preferences to where you live so that the map will go there instead of to Fresno is kind of the default location if you don't set your preferences. So what surveys do we have, let's say since 2010 in your chapter area? And I selected here that area, search. And then they'll show up on the map. And then there's also this, let's fold up the map. Here they are on the map with a lot of gaps. If I change the date to before 2010, there would probably be fewer gaps. And then let's sort by name. So you might be familiar with some of these, more familiar than I am because you live there. This is Arlie's, one of Arlie's, Horse Thief Canyon. We've been working on that together. And Arlie and Aaron are really leading this. So if you're interested in becoming involved, stay for this after party and we'll figure out who's going to do what to make sure that these areas are covered. Now let's just look at Arlie's Horse Thief Canyon. Let's look at what plants does she have listed here. Here's the polygon for Horse Thief Canyon, showing the area. And then her plant list is here. She has 240 species that she says she's seen in this within this polygon somewhere. It's a pretty big polygon. Can change to map, it might be easier to see. And she could change the number of plants. It's not really necessary. You can also collect negative data. So if you looked for this maple and didn't see it in this entire polygon, you can call that absence data. So I looked for maple, didn't find it, and I can't edit this because this is Arlie's observation or Arlie's survey, but she could edit it and say, look for a not found by saying plant count 0. And then here are her 240 species she found there. If you go out with her and you find something else, then you or she can add to this survey. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing at the after party. Before that, I think that there's a lot of questions that I should address. So let's go over some questions first.
Katie, are you there?
Okay, I'll start with the questions while
Got it. Here I am, Orchid, sorry.
Awesome.
So the first question we have is Linda Richards is asking, do you want photos from locations that have recently burned in wildfires?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And in particular, Linda says, do you want them since they have been burned over? In other words, she has photos of pre-burn
Uh-huh.
plants.
Oh, wow.
And she said, do you want them where the area has been burned over so you would know the original location?
Interesting. Okay, so that's a great question. Anytime somebody says, do you want, and it involves an observation being added to CalFlora, I always say yes, as long as you know the location and the species, or even if you don't know the species, if you add it to Plant ID Help Group. But this Linda's particular question looking at change since a fire is really important, because if you have photos of how things looked before the fire and at a specific place, and then you have photos of how things looked after a fire, that's important to document that change. And if you have information about a specific species, what it was like before the fire, and what it has been for that, how it's been for that species since the fire. Maybe it's a fire follower, maybe it's not, it's been decimated. That is really valuable. And I would say if the fire occurred in, let's say 2015, if you have a 2014 photo, add it, and then add your 2016 post-fire photo both, and have just different observation dates. And that way users will see both before the fire and after the fire. There's something in CalFlora called a history stack, where you can track change over time by putting the same species within a certain area from a different observation date. You can stack them on top of each other. That's, that's not a topic for this conversation. This is a more general, broad conversation. But if you're interested in learning more about history stacking and how that works, and how you can export it and look at it, because all CalFlora data is exportable, we can go into that via email or via separate phone call. Does that answer Linda's question?
I think so. Linda, if it doesn't answer your question, type in any more that you have, please. Okay, we have an anonymous question. Can you take a picture of a plant and use it to see what plant you have?
There's a lot of apps that do that really well. iNaturalist does that really well with their Seek app. There's several others. So we decided we're not going to reinvent the wheel, and we're not going to try and, make ours better than anybody else's. So use theirs to help you ID it. And then if you're still not sure, add it to CalFlora Plant ID Help.
Can you show us how to add a plant to the ID help?
Yes, great question. Let's see, from the CalFlora homepage, calflora.org, and this is this is my CalFlora login, which means I'm already a member of a lot of groups. So don't let it overwhelm you when you see this. You go to My CalFlora, and My CalFlora has all things that are customized to you, because as you log in, you want to be able to go to a specific place on the map where you live, and not to always Fresno unless you live in Fresno. Your preferences, comments on your records, comments you've made, your groups, your profile. Tell people about your botanical skills. Tell them what your degree is in if it's relevant, so that when they're looking at your observations, they can see, like, does this person know what's going on? My observations, which are specific to me, my searches, my email alerts. If you want to know when rare plants are added to anywhere in your county or anywhere in your chapter, you can set up an email alert. My plant lists, my shapes. You would go to my groups, and Plant ID Help, I'm already in it, but if I weren't in it, it would say join this group right here, and you would just check a box saying join this group. There's a lot of groups. There's hundreds of CalFlora groups, special interest groups that you might be interested in joining. Here are the ones that I'm not already a member of that are open groups. You can also create, here I would click join this group if I wanted to join the Butte County group. You can also create a private group and only invite people to join, which wouldn't show up here these are just the open groups. So if you have a special interest group that you want to keep kind of to yourself, your cards to your chest, maybe it's about rare plants, you don't really want to advertise it, you can create a private group. But anyway, that's how you join a group. And if you join this Plant ID help group, you can look and see what recent activity has there been in here. So yesterday or 2 days ago, Chuck Kozak commented on this observation, which was labeled as unknown by Matt Berry. And he's suggesting, I think based on your photo, that it is this Draba. And here's why. And that link he included was to the CalFlora Taxon report page. So we could go here. Let's see if I don't know this species. Do you guys think this looks like a Draba? Do you guys know this species? Nova olympica.
Don't know this species.
Okay. Well, if this was something that you strongly agreed or disagreed with Chuck's comment, you could add a comment and say, you know what, Chuck, I don't think so. It's a different Draba, or Chuck's absolutely right. And Matt, if he doesn't respond within a week, then this goes into this questionable category in CalFlora. So that was a Plant ID help. And then you can, I actually really like, for those of you who are great botanists, this would be helpful if you would join this group and just kind of go through these. And there's some that haven't been responded to yet. So somebody says, I think this is a cardamine, I really don't know. And that's Mike Andrews, and you can go through and say, I agree or I disagree. Randy Huey didn't know at all. He's saying maybe it's some kind of wattle. You could look at his photos. So that's Plant ID help group. Next question.
So there's actually a couple questions that I'm pulling from the chat. And one of those I think you just addressed is, how do you get them to ID it for you? And I just posted the iNaturalist link in the chat for folks who want to use that.
The Seek one, or?
I just posted the overall iNaturalist.org link. I can try that too.
Because this, if you want to join Plant ID help group, this would be the link to, should I paste that in the chat?
Sure.
That would be the link to join.
Okay, great. So a question, actually Orchid had a question in the chat. How do I change the location of a plant that I uploaded a photo for?
Okay, let's do that together. There's that in the chat. Then Orchid, you would go to My Observations. So here we are back at the CalFlora homepage, calflora.org. I'm signed in as me. You would need to sign in as yourself or log in. And then, and if you forgot your password, you can do a password reset here. Go to My Observations. All right, so you want to change the location, you said, or change the ID, or both?
The location. Oh, go ahead, Orchid.
Location. I know how to change the ID. I figured that out between last night and today.
Okay. Any observation that's mine, my observations that I want to edit, I can go to the purple pencil here and edit it. So let's click on the purple pencil. You can delete it. You can look at the location more closely. You can edit it, and you can look at more detail. So let's go to the editor. And for this, let's zoom in. For this Durka that I saw last week, I'm going to go into edit mode. I can change it, and it's a rare plant, so maybe I should actually add it to I should create this. I should use the Cnddb Forum. So let's do that. Cnddb Forum. It was a little bit of a big area. It was maybe a 5-meter radius. Location description in Wildcat Canyon, and that's pulled in also from the location. Habitat, you can change all of these for, let's call it. Anyway, I'm not going to go through all of these, but you can go through and change it as you want to. And then if you want to move the point, which I will, because it wasn't actually on the trail, it was off the trail. My point, as you can see here, is right in the middle of the trail, and it was more over here. So let's go to point location, change point location, and just move it a little bit more off the trail. Let's move change point location again and move it way over here. All right, that's better. So that's more where it was. I was on the trail taking the picture. I didn't want to climb through the poison oak to get to it, so I took a picture from far away, and that's more actually where it was. And then save it like that. If you know the lat long, you can enter the coordinates here instead of clicking on the map. And you can also get the coordinates by clicking on the map. Does that help, Orchid?
That's great.
Okay, and then you save it.
Great. Okay.
Thanks.
I have a question from Colin Barrows regarding the What Grows Here tool and trying to determine the possible plants found in an area. Do you have any tips or comments about the accuracy of the CalFlora database? It seems like I sometimes get a lot of species in a place that is not always credible. Have you done accuracy checking on the database as a whole?
Let's go to What Grows Here and look at Colin's question. Colin, thank you for those gorgeous photos you added. They're really nice. Here from tools, from most applications in CalFlora, you can jump to a lot of other places, but stay at this location. For instance, here's the help about how to use this plant observation entry that I was just using to move the point. FAQs about contributing plant observations, a video about how to use the application, the Taxon report for the Sturca. If you want to print an herbarium label, a lot of people are submitting specimens and they also want to add the specimen to CalFlora. Then we have this special link for creating your herbarium label. So you can do that. The detail page, back to my observations, group observations. If you're part of a group, you can see what they've observed at this location. Observation search at this location, what grows here, and then shape editor. So Colin was asking about what grows here and saying that sometimes he finds species in what grows here that he doesn't think are credible. Let's turn on region. I'm going to turn on CPAD, the protected areas. So these different colored polygons are for different protected areas. That's East Bay mud, restricted access in pink. Click on this one, Wildcat Canyon Regional Park, no access. Restricted, Wildcat. Okay, so Wildcat is where I was. Let's look for in Wildcat, plant filter, native. I mean, ideally we would be doing this in an area that you guys know, not an area that I know. But here we are, and there's 204 plants. So Colin, you're saying sometimes you see species that you don't think are actually growing at that place. What I would recommend doing is looking at them on the map. Well, Buckeye for sure is there. This dandelion is probably there. I don't know, bent grass. Let's just see what, and when you click on record, you have the option to display points. You can display them in different colors. You can create a palette so that certain species have certain colors when you look at them on the map. Let's just do display points in blue. So somebody says that this bent grass is located here. And if you're questioning that, 1997, so it's kind of old, Barbara Erder, she's very knowledgeable. I would say that's probably right. However, it's a CCH record, so it could be that it was incorrectly georeferenced. It's not from that long ago. There's some much older ones in CCH. But if you question that one, you could let us know because we can hide CCH records in CalFlora. If there's another one, like let's see some that aren't just CCH. Oops, let's display these in pink. Back it out. So let's say, oh, that's another CCH. All right, this is a CalFlora observation. If you don't think this is correct, you can go to comments and add a comment and say, I don't think this one is correct. And the person who added it receives an email. And like I said, it goes into the questionable category if they don't respond to the email. So that's kind of a species by species check that you can do as an individual, Colin. Broadly speaking, we have, 80,000 e-visitors each month doing these checks, sifting through in different corners, adding comments, moving observations into the questionable category. And we do have algorithms that say if there's a species that shows up way outside its range and way outside where we know it could possibly grow, we get triggers about that just to like look into that, see what's going on. Is there a problem here? But we also really depend on users to be sifting through the data and writing comments to help with the quality checking. Does that answer your question, Colin?
Colin, if there's any more to your question, just go ahead and type it into the Q&A, please. Cynthia, Kathleen Wing asked if you could show the what grows here. I think this was for the Redlands area.
Sure.
Yeah,
that's a great idea. Good.
For the planting guide.
Oh, for the planting guide. Okay.
Sorry.
So from calflora.org, let's go to the planting guide and let's look at, let's see, that's a protected area, right? The red, what did you call it? The red?
Well, she just said the city of Redlands.
Redlands, okay. So I think you can just type Redlands and it should work. You might need an exact address. Is there someplace special you wanted to go in Redlands, Kathleen?
Let's see.
You could even see like northeast, southwest, or near Smiley Heights or something like that.
Maybe go ahead with just Redlands, unless Kathleen, you want us.
Mentone area? Mentone. Where's Mentone? Somebody wrote Mentone area.
Oh, Mentone. Okay.
Mentone. Sorry. Where's Mentone?
Up and to the right.
Oh, here, Mentone. Right here or here?
Yes.
Okay. So here's our, I just typed in Redlands and then moved the point a little bit to the northeast of Redlands. And then we're searching to see what will grow well there. The default that was checked was low water. And then under more criteria, the defaults were in the same ecoregion, use soil factors, omit plants at the edge of their tolerances. As I showed you guys before, you can change those. So let's fold this up and just scroll through so Arlie can get worked up about the shade again. Oh no, shade isn't checked. Okay, so what do you guys think? Am I going too fast?
Here's another question. So it about this list for Redlands.
Yeah.
There are a lot of great plants on the list that are in no way in cultivation, except unless you were doing restoration. Yeah, some people using the planting guide are doing restoration. So I would say you're the most as the one doing the planting, you're knowledgeable. So if you say this is a restoration plant, it's not going to work in my garden, don't plant it, throw it out. But we did create the algorithm to work for restoration and gardens. Is that your question? That is my question.
Okay. It might be interesting to have, an extra filter that says not for restoration or only for restoration or only for gardens or something like that. But would that, I wonder,
That would be helpful.
Oh, that's really interesting. I'll write that down. Okay, so I need to ask John about the shade and then not for garden or only for gardens, not for restoration. On the planting guide. Does that answer Kathleen's question about Redlands and the Mentone area? And anything that you want to, okay, great. Anything that you want to look for in the planting guide, just, go to the homepage, go to the planting guide. You can click on the map to choose your location. You can use layers to help you find it. Like click on the map and then click search and just go for it that way.
Great. I don't have any other questions showing.
Okay.
Cynthia.
Maybe we should do the after party.
Yeah, Arlie's just mentioning that Cowscape is another program that's available in combination with CalFlora for planting guide related information.
CalScape, the difference between CalScape and the planting guide, and I've been talking with Andrea and Leave about this recently at CNPS, is that CalScape uses CCH1 information as their observations, and some of them are not. The location accuracy, the georeference accuracy is not that high. So And it's really interesting actually to compare if you're using Cowscape and you're using the planting guide, just to compare and see what algorithm gives you what results. And they are looking for a way to incorporate some more observation data into Cowscape to make it potentially more accurate. I don't know, but that's something that we've been talking about. All right, should we do the...
Yeah, that's all I have for questions. Okay. So if you want to go ahead.
So thanks for attending. You can always go to the CalFlora homepage and contact us. If you have any more questions down here, click contact CalFlora. And here's our email address. If you include the hyperlink, then we can see exactly what you're seeing, and that's really helpful. So the after party is going to be talking about entering surveys and checklists, some people call them plant lists, into CalFlora. Is Aaron Eccles also here in addition to Arlie? I hope so.
I don't see Aaron.
You don't see him? Okay. Here. So Arlie, that's, let's just go over adding a survey. So you go to, from the homepage, add observations, and then this is what we're talking about, adding a survey or a checklist. So do you guys have one that either we could look at one that's already in CalFlora that you want to edit, that you know more about, or do you have a few species in mind for a specific area in your chapter that we could just add as a demo? I know Arlie recently edited her Horse Thief Canyon one. I don't know if she has more she wants to do to that. We could add, like, what's somewhere you've been to recently? Let's see. Here? Oh, that's BLM. Where have you been to recently where you saw some plants? Anybody who's still on the call who's interested?
Why don't I put, Ed, can we promote Arlie? Arlie, are you there? Oh, he's not here.
Oh, so Arlie can talk.
I don't see Arlie as being online.
She is online.
Oh.
Yeah, I promoted her, so I think she just has to turn her mic in.
I was just added, didn't notice.
Hi, Arlie.
Hi. Aaron and I just spoke before the presentation this morning, and he couldn't come because he's in the Salton Sea today.
Oh, wow.
With his phone, and it wasn't going to work out very well. I think what we wanted to do was just mention that for doing specific plant lists that are associated with our CNPS chapter per se, not just the chapter region, because that we would like to set up a special project or account just for the chapter where official lists that we've been able to cross-check and for quality control are generated. Anybody can enter a list, within our chapter boundaries, district boundaries. But what we would like to do is as I mentioned, to be an official list from our chapter, we would like to do some quality control checks on those lists.
Okay, so should I demo how to add a survey as an individual person who's not necessarily using the chapter as a backbone?
Right.
Okay.
Because a lot of people aren't members even. And so we would want them to be associated in some way.
Yeah.
So that we know who they are. So it's not just anybody going out and generating a list and then saying it's a CNPS RSB list.
Yeah.
Well, why
don't we just add one for an area that you guys are familiar with that's in your chapter area? And it doesn't have to be complete, just if you can throw a couple species out off the top of your head.
Well, you had the Harford Springs.
Harper Springs. Okay, let's find that.
Harford, so that was one that you had sent me.
Oh yeah, how do you spell that? H-A?
Harford. Springs,
Harford, that's right.
Springs.
Harford.
That might be a good one because we've done a lot of field trips there, and
Mhm.
we're looking at the list. The list that included a lot from it's not our chapter's official list,
Mhm.
but it's a good place to show. As an example.
H-A-R, am I spelling this correctly?
Yeah, Harford Springs, and then two words.
It should find it under Harford. Let's
Yeah, but
see.
showing the Bay Area. It's in
Yeah,
Riverside
I
County.
clicked anywhere, so it should pick that up. Maybe let's back it out and go
It's
to your
in-
chapter.
It is
So
a-
instead of adding a new one, you're saying we could just edit one that's already in there. Let's look at. So here's the 1,156 surveys that are in your chapter area from any point in time. We can fold up the map. Let's sort by name and just see there's a lot from Dean Taylor. This is the DFW veg.
mapping, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot from there. Oh my goodness. And then these are from USGS, the Mojave veg mapping program. Looks from the late 90s.
I mean, San Bernardino and Riverside counties are very large.
Yeah.
so that's why I suggested you can. Well, see, there's that.
So it's not called.
You can do the.
We can enter it new, the
you
Harford
can
one?
You can do the open space one, the Dos Lagos open space, but that's not open to the public. That's one that I was generating for workers.
Oh, okay. This one? No. This one? Yeah, this
there's
one.
weeds, and then the Dos Lagos open space. How about that one?
Okay. So editor. All right. So let's see how many plants. Here's the polygon area.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the plant list. Here's some information about it. Plant list, 134. Let's actually move the point into the polygon. There we go. And for those of you who are on the phone and for Arlie, do you know offhand another species we should add that's not already on here?
Oh gosh, it's too hard for me to do that.
Well, if you did know, is there an invasive plant that's here that you might not have added to your list?
I think they're on the other sheet.
Or if it's already been in there, it's okay. The system will tell us it's already there.
I think of Detrichia. I wonder if Detrichia is on there yet.
Detrichia. Oh, and do you know that it grows there?
I know that it grows right on the edge.
Okay.
But I don't know if it grows in
That's
there.
bad, huh?
Yeah,
all right, save. 135 now. It was 134 a second ago, right? So I think it did just add that one.
Yeah.
So that's how you could add one species. Now, if you wanted to add a survey fresh that had not been already in CalFlora, so this is how to edit one that's already there. And I could only edit it because Arlie gave me access to do that. And it's her survey. So let's just show people who are interested in adding their own survey how they can do that. So you go to add survey. Let's look at CPAD again. And go down here. Now, who on the call could list, I don't know, Joshua tree? Do you know 3 species that grow in Joshua tree for sure? Just as a demo? Or any place? Anza Borrego, San Bernardino.
Yeah.
You could do that. Mojave.
Okay, well, Mojave National Preserve. How about something that everybody knows? I'm sorry, I'm just blanking.
Mojave test survey with Arlie. I'm going to say I was not there.
We have all those different surveys that are in there. How about
I just changed the date
Okay.
to 2020. So anytime when you say 0101 after the year, it means anytime in 2020 this was seen there. So what's one thing that would have been in Mojave that in 2020 at some point?
Oh gosh, I'm just really blanking, but there's like a zillion different things. Is Colin there? Katie just named something because there's a zillion plants.
Isn't there a rattlesnake grass that's really beautiful? Or
Yeah.
rattlesnake something it's called?
Are you talking about Bryza? Which is
Rattlesnake.
invasive?
No, it's so beautiful.
There are risks.
Rattlesnake sandmat, this euphorbia. Does that grow in Mojave?
I don't know if it's in the Mojave, but it's
There's devil's lace there. Okay, let's look up devil's lace. And if devil's claw, if we don't have devil's lace as a common name, do you know the
well, there are Joshua trees there.
Oh yeah, we could put Joshua trees in Joshua. Are there Joshua trees in Mojave too?
Yeah.
Okay, Joshua tree. Save. All right, and then Kaz, do you know devil's lace? Do you know the scientific name or another common name for devil's lace? Because we didn't find that common name when we were entering it here.
Witch's lace, Kaz is saying?
He's saying it's devil's lace. Oh, here, try witches. Oh, right. Witch, blue witch, old witchgrass, rough stalk witchgrass, smooth witchgrass, blue witch nightshade, witchgrass. Is it this one? Panicum capillary?
I don't know. How about Paratyle emorii?
There you go.
How you spell it?
Perity. I mean, yeah, Tyle. Perityle.
And which one?
Emorii. EMORYI.
Oh yeah, here we
First
go.
one. Yeah.
Okay.
Save that.
Um,
And if you had a list of plants coming from Excel, you could just paste it in here and it does a spell check for you and then it spits out the ones that are not spelled correctly.
or Cyanactis. You know how to spell Cyanactis?
No.
CHAENACTIS.
Wait, something's PH was the beginning?
PH.
CH.
Yeah.
Okay, and which one is it?
Fremontii.
Fremontii.
The name change. Yeah, there we go. And we can do Hesperoyucca, Whipplei.
How do you spell it?
HESPERO.
SPRO.
YUCCA, Hesperoyucca.
Wow, you're really good with your spellings. Oh, here we go, Whipplei. And if you weren't so good with your spellings, you can start typing as you've seen me do, and then it helps you by dropping down everything that matches. Save. Okay, and if you had a list that you wanted to paste, you could paste it here. If there was something you for sure didn't see, we could say we looked for it and we didn't see it, so we could change the plant count to 0. What's something that for sure doesn't grow there?
Pinus ponderosa, maybe? Maybe not
Good.
really.
Yeah, no, that's great.
That's
Right.
good.
I'd say I agree with that, and I don't really know much about Mojave at all. All right, and then we need to identify a shape to associate with our survey, and you can either take this protected area, so the whole Mojave, and see how it has those little holes in it. That's hard to draw as a polygon, so it's nice if you just want to take the whole shape. CalFlora has already drawn it for you. If you were only in, say, the southern part of the Mojave, you could just draw, a little polygon around the part that you were in, and then just assign a point location, to the center of your polygon. And then I'm just going to put it in independent group. You could assign it to a group if you wanted to, share it with your CNPS chapter if you're part of this, and then save it. So now everybody who's looking, let's go from here to what grows here, which is what Colin was asking about.
Mhm.
And we should probably do this also with, actually, let's do it with Arlie's. I don't think it'll, what I want to do is show you that what we just added really makes a difference in the search results, although I don't think it will because we just added stuff that was already known
Mhm.
to grow in the Mojave, but we could test it. So in selected background, what grows here? And then what I do is I unpublish the survey and then compare results. And there's usually, a dozen species. So we have 1445 known to grow somewhere in this selected background, which is the Mojave. And if we unpublish our survey, save it again, I doubt this number will change, but if it were a really thorough survey, it would go down from 1445 because that information would be missing because it hadn't been published yet. So it's important to remember to publish when you're adding observations and surveys into CalFlora, or else they don't inform the whole database. Oh, there is one. Crazy.
What's that?
Yeah, how do we know which one is the next question? Gosh, I don't know. But which of these would somebody have not already seen? It also means that maybe we're wrong
It
about
could
which
be.
ones. So maybe we should leave it as unpublished.
Oh, don't publish this list. Yeah.
Okay, we'll leave it as unpublished.
We're just playing around.
Okay,
Yeah.
but that was,
So,
yes.
James Gannon was commenting that there might be a ponderosa on some of the 6,000-foot mountains.
Oh yeah, it's always possible. Yeah. I mean, I haven't been to the top of all those places. I haven't been to Mojave that much.
I also wanted just to respond because Kaz was noting that he was interested in the what he was referring to, the orange invasive parasitic that strangles host, and I think he means Cuscuta, and there is a native daughter that occurs there.
Yeah.
So should we add that to our survey, even though it's
It
not
looks like
published?
it should be Cuscuta denticulate. I'm just guessing based on
How do you spell it? C?
Cuscuta. And let's see, I may not have the species right. I was checking for what grows in Joshua Tree. It says denticulata. That you might want to check.
Japanese or desert daughter.
Yeah.
Save. But since it's unpublished, we don't really have to check. Yeah, and then we could save it. And if we're published, that would inform the list of what grows here for which species grow in the Mojave.
Right. How about adding Pinus monophylla?
Okay. Now you're getting into it, right? You're like, oh, I know what else grows there.
There's so many. I mean, it was just like, where do you start?
In the whole Mojave. What we could have done also to kind of cheat would be to look at what does grow in the Mojave and be like, oh yeah, pull in some of those, onto our list. Why doesn't this uncheck?
And thorn.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so any questions about adding surveys to CalFlora? And if you're interested in doing it as a chapter, do it through Arlie, please. And if you're interested in doing it individually, you can just follow the steps that we just did and choose the location and add species to it. If you have any questions, again, take this URL, even if it's unpublished, go to the homepage. Okay, I'll save it. Go to the homepage, contact CalFlora, and send us an email and paste that URL into your email so that we can help you. And any final questions?
Cynthia,
Yeah.
I do have a couple other questions that came in while you were doing that. And one of those from Kaz, what mapping database platform do you use?
We use Google Maps.
Okay. And then Colin had a follow-up question with regard to the What Grows Here tool.
Uh-huh.
It has a location quality option, medium or high.
Yeah.
How should we think about the difference between those options?
When we just entered that survey, for every survey, the
Sorry.
the
Sorry.
observations are low location quality. So if you're using what grows here, let's look at what Colin was just talking about. What grows here, results, location quality. If you only choose high, you're going to get fewer results. You won't get CCH records because they have, not all, but the older ones have lower location quality. The new observations added with smartphones usually have higher location quality. And a good way to use this location quality is if you're trying to go back and recheck. Wow, it cut out a lot. We're down to 854 at high. If you want to go back to a place and recheck and see if that species is still there, you only want to be looking for high location quality observations. Otherwise, you'll see this dot on your map on Observer Pro, and you'll see your blue dot showing where you are. And you'll be like, well, I'm right on top of it and it's not here. What's going on? It's because it had low location quality. So you want to throw those out. And if you do want to load observations onto Observer Pro to go search for them in the field, the way you do that is you go to observation search, you say, I'm going to go to, we could just stick with the Mojave. I'm going to the Mojave. Let's open up region, protected area, Mojave. In selected area, I want to know the rare plants that grow there, search. And then under tools, you save the search. We'll call it Mojave. Save it, Mojave Rare. Save it, and then you set up load historical records into Observer Pro to pull those into Observer Pro. And then if you want to set up an email alert to let you know when more rare plants in the Mojave region are added to CalFlora, you can click here to set up an email alert. Does that answer your question, Colin?
While you're answering or checking to see, there's another, maybe a comment. What happened to our winter rains? It's getting dry and it's February. Can you help us with that, Cynthia?
Yeah, I'll work on that. That's next. next on the agenda.
Colin has a follow-up about the high and asking location quality and asking about medium.
What is medium? Let's see. We have a matrix showing what's defined as high, medium, and low location quality. Let's see. Where is that matrix? I think it is. Actually, we could just Google it. CalFlora location. Oh, I'm on Yahoo. Quality index matrix. I don't know if Yahoo is going to be able to find that. About data sets. Nope. Location quality matrix. About observation data. I think that's what we just saw, right? No, it's different. How is it? Quality control. Colin asked about that also. Scientific name changes. Here we go. Make this a little bigger. Here's how high, medium, and low are assigned between up to, it looks like 18,000 square meters or 76 radius is high, 76 meter radius is high. Up to 489 meter radius is medium, and then anything more than that is low. Okay, any other questions?
I don't see any other questions. There are some comments about a great presentation, very helpful. Thank you, Cynthia. We just want to remind folks that CalFlora is a great resource, and You can support them in whatever way you can by posting photos or making contributions, and the link to
Oh, yeah.
CalFlora is in the chat.
Yeah, and if you want to donate money, there's a donate link on the homepage too. Looks like Arlie raised her hand.
Yeah, so there are some people interested in setting up some survey lists.
Oh, good.
Through the chapter.
Uh-huh.
What they should do is contact us at rsbcmps@gmail.org. .com, sorry. So I'm putting it in the chat. rsbcmps@gmail. I'm sorry, I'm using a computer that's at a really weird height and I can barely type. Okay, because I don't know what I can capture from the chats and names and no email addresses. So that would be the best way to do it. And we have not set up our system yet. We're just talking about it at this point. But maybe by spring, we'll be able to get things going.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for leading that, Arlie, and thanks to all of you for participating, and have a good rest of your weekend.
Thank you, Cynthia.